I want to talk about the European Central Bank. The Europeans, they got a lot of crazy stuff going on over there. And in the Eurozone, I think there's 19 countries in the Eurozone that all go into this European Central Bank that kind of governs them. They've got this multinational currency, the euro. And frankly, it seems like every day in the United States, we read something about the folks in Europe doing crazy stuff, whether it's government policies or monetary policy. But this morning, they announced that they're going to now officially move into digital currencies. They are going to start working on what they call a digital euro. And so in order to understand the digital euro, we got to go back in history a little bit and understand where we're coming from. So every single asset in the world used to be physical. We used to have physical currencies. We used to have physical stock certificates. We used to have physical deeds to your house, physical mortgages, etc. In the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, we began to move from physical form, so literally physical paper currency, etc., to electronic CUSIPs. Electronic CUSIPs are just a long string of letters and numbers that sit inside of centralized databases, and they basically get moved around between centralized databases, right? But usually those centralized databases are merely keeping track of the numbers for physical assets. So you got analog assets or physical assets, then we moved to this electronic CUSIP system. When you look at your bank account today, that's where electronic CUSIP money sits, right? If you go and you say, hey, I got a Bank of America account or whatever, and you say, oh, I got $100 in my account, that's electronic CUSIP money. What they're talking about is creating a digital version. That digital version would look much more like a Bitcoin or other type of crypto asset, right? Where there would be a ledger that all of it is tracked on that would have a token component to it. Now, the problem with this is that when they talk about the digital euro, they always like to ride the coattails of true cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, right? They always want to present it as if it's going to be decentralized or that there's going to be some advantages to it. It's important for everyone to understand every currency in the world is going to be digital. We are going to have a digital dollar. They're obviously now going to talk about this digital euro. There'll be a digital yuan, digital yen, etc. There will be private currencies, things like Facebook's Diem, etc. And then you're going to have kind of decentralized currency like Bitcoin. Now, the fiat currencies today that are in electronic CUSIP format that simply get digitized, there's no change to the monetary policy. Right? They're still going to create trillions of dollars. They're still going to devalue the currency. They're still going to manipulate interest rates, etc. They're just changing the technology form factor. And when they change that technology form factor, they're presenting it as if it is some great positive. So there's a quote that Christine Lagarde, the head of the ECB, had where she said, "Our work aims to ensure that in the digital age, citizens and firms continue to have access to the safest form of money, central bank money." I don't know what definition of safest she is using, but if we evaluate fiat currency in the possible ways that you could define safe, it fails every single check, right? So first, safe being, oh, it sticks as a store of value. The euro has lost value compared to other assets over the last 12 months, right? It has been a fool's game to simply hold cash. And therefore, the euro fails the safety test in terms of the ability to protect purchasing power. If you're worried about maybe censorship resistance, the euro fails that test of safety because they censor people all the time. And sometimes it's for things simply they don't like you. And therefore, you can't actually make transactions because they put you on a list somewhere or they cause problems for your business, etc. They freeze your assets, all that type of stuff. So it fails any sort of store of value test. It also fails the censorship resistance test. Then the last idea of safety that I could think they could be talking about here is that they're talking about it from a government surveillance standpoint, right? Is you're safe from your own government being able to see it. With physical dollars or cash or physical euros, you are safe, right? There's a level of pseudonymity to it or anonymity where you can use physical cash and it's very, very hard for them to track. But as we know in the United States, 92% of the money supply is in electronic CUSIP form. It's not in physical cash or coins. And so it's actually a very small percent, a minority percent of the money supply comes in this physical form. And so as they move to this digital format, what we're going to find is there's some problems that pop up, right? And when those problems pop up, I think that they're going to just kind of wash over them, right? If you think about the number one problem here is when they create this digital euro, they're simply going to have full surveillance capabilities. They're going to be able to say, we have a digital currency that's centralized. They control it. And when they control that currency, they now can say, you know what, John? I don't think that you should be allowed to go spend money at the club. Or you know what, John? I don't think that you should be allowed to go spend money at the supermarket. You're laughing because I said club. You're laughing because I said club, right? Yeah. You can't spend money at the supermarket. John, you can't spend money on Uber, right? In China, for example, where there's a more authoritarian government, you haven't walked enough today, therefore you can't get a taxi or an Uber, right? What happens when we have this full government surveillance capability? It's scary as hell that they're now going to have the ability to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about John over here, but clubs that's a no from you, right?
That's a no from me. Clubs, bars, restaurants, everything. Uber.
A digital currency created by a central bank is a hard pass from me. Come on. More surveillance, less privacy. They can manipulate money even further, really, right? You can do, you were just saying, personalized monetary policy. They can tell you where and when to spend it, everything, right? It just opens up Pandora's box of like what you can and can't do. People are not ready for the personalized monetary policy. That to me is where you're going to see kind of the wealthy get up in arms over this, right? So the whole idea of a personalized monetary policy is right now, the Federal Reserve in the United States, they basically have a monetary policy. They implement that monetary policy on US dollars, regardless of who you are, if you're wealthy or not, if you're in the United States or anywhere else, you basically are subject to that monetary policy, right? They make kind of one monetary policy that fits everybody. A personalized monetary policy basically means that they could actually expose John to a lower level of inflation and maybe a higher interest rate than me, who they give a higher level of inflation and a lower interest rate to, right? Why they do this, how they determine who gets what, that's all up for debate. But now with these digital currencies, what they literally would be able to do is create personalized monetary policy. Everything else in your life is personalized. Literally, your Google search results are personalized. Your music is personalized. If you go and you do anything on Amazon, is personalized. The ads are personalized. Everything in your life is personalized. If you think that once they have the capability, they're not going to personalize monetary policy, I got a whole bunch of other tricks that I could tell you about. The second thing that they're going to do, and we saw China just run an experiment with this, is basically this expiration of money. So we have a version of it in the United States, but the way that it works is they basically say, okay, we're going to give you some currency, and this currency is specifically given to you for a certain period of time, and you can only spend it on certain goods. And so in the United States, EBT cards are kind of a comparison, or at least something that's tangentially related, where they basically allow you to have the EBT card, they give you the money, you have to spend it on food, but there are certain rules and regulations around what type of food, it can't be prepared food, all this different stuff, and there's an expiration to it. In China, the experiment they ran was basically taking that idea, but expanding on it and saying, what if they had given us the stimulus checks and you couldn't save it, or you couldn't invest it? They had said, hey, we're gonna give you $1,200, but you got to go spend it. And you have 2 weeks. If you don't spend it in 2 weeks, it expires, right? That would be a way for them to manipulate the market or drive velocity of money in the market, but they don't have the technology to do that today. As somebody like the ECB gets a digital euro, this is absolutely on the table. They've got this guy who's the head of the BIS, the Bank of International Settlement. You've ever seen like the really big dude? It's just true. He weighs like 400 pounds. And he basically keeps saying all these crazy stuff. Like they'll have full control. They'll know everything that's going on. And it's almost like he's like a meme at this point. Like he knows that he's doing, saying like this crazy stuff, but that's what they ultimately want. Like the central bank thinks that they have the ultimate power and that they should have full control. And by creating this digital euro, that's exactly what they're going to get, right? Yeah.
What are you two snickering about?
I was looking at the picture of him. You're right.
No, two of the biggest points I think you made were security and surveillance, right? So it decreases security and increases surveillance, which is awful for the person.
Do we think young people, like your friends and stuff, do they worry about that stuff?
I don't think so.
No? Because they just want the money?
They take their $1,200 and run.
Yeah, but they can't run now. Right? If all of a sudden now the government has the ability to tell them, hey, I'm going to hand you $1,200, but you can only spend it in local businesses in your city, and you can't spend it on food, alcohol, or clubs.
Can't go to the sporting event.
Yeah, like they just say you have to spend it on local stuff.
They might care then.
They would care, yeah.
They would care a lot then, right? It's kind of like, in some weird way, probably the equivalent for a young person is if you walk into a place and you want to use Apple Pay and they don't accept Apple Pay, right? It's like a nuisance. So you just get another form of payment and you pay with a different form. But imagine if literally they said, you cannot spend that money here because the government won't let you do it. I think that's a huge problem, right?
Yeah, I think the security is a huge problem. So once we took our money and went digital, we actually basically let the banks, the government, they can go in and they can just take. If you owe the IRS money, they're just going to take it out of your account. That's how it goes.
The other piece of this is that they have full transparency. So today, if let's say, for example, person A gets in trouble with the government says, you know what, we want to see what person A is doing financially. They have to go to the court system. They have to say, hey, we'd like a subpoena to freeze these assets and be able to get a statement from a bank, right? And then we can do our investigation, do all this stuff. There's a check and balance there in terms of their ability to actually get it. What I fear, and we don't know yet, right? That there's no exact plan laid out yet, so we don't know all the details. But what I fear is if there's a centralized ledger that they have access to, they're going to know exactly how much money is in your bank account. They're going to know exactly what you're doing with it, what you're spending on it, and they're also going to know the flow of funds. Who are you financially interacting with as well? And so while that may sound like, if you're a statist and you like government power, that may sound like a dream to you. To the everyday citizen that's worried about freedom and privacy, that's an absolute nightmare. And so I think that we've got to be very, very careful. Now, you want to know my favorite part about this entire thing? Oh, well, here's a chart, actually. Let's talk about this for a second. Here's a chart that's got all the different countries and what their activity around central bank digital currencies are. So yellow is plans to issue a CBDC, pink is actively exploring it, and then blue is conducting true research or experiments, right? And so if you look at this chart, you start to see, hey, there's a bunch of countries that don't have it, but they tend to be the smaller, less developed nations that don't have any kind of movement yet. And my guess is that if we look at this chart in, 5 years, definitely 10 years, the entire thing's covered and every single government or central bank's doing something, right?
Grenada already issued digital currency.
What are they doing?
They issued with, St. Kitts, Nevis, they all use the same central bank, and they already issued a digital currency for their citizens.
I mean, that's wild that they've already done it and no one really knows about it.
If I want a digital US dollar, I'll use my credit card. Like, what?
But here's the part that scares me out of all of this, honestly, is that they're just using a bunch of big terms. Like, they're literally talking about the digital euro as if the cryptocurrencies are bad. They were like, oh, those cryptocurrencies, they're not safe, they're not private, like they use too much energy, like they're saying all this stuff. And they're like, wait a minute. You guys are literally taking the same argument, and then all you're going to do is you're going to create a currency that you expect us to use, and you have full control and surveillance over it.
Yeah, they're taking away all the good parts of crypto.
Should we go back to a full cash economy where they can't see anything?
I mean, there's some people who only use cash, right? For
yes.
specific reasons.
The reason why I asked that question, obviously we can't go back to a full cash economy, is there's trade-offs, right? There is some gain of efficiency by using electronic QSIP dollars today, right, versus cash. So people are willing to gain convenience and give up a little bit of privacy, right? It's to the extremist that is privacy-centric and doesn't want to give up any convenience and will go and do super difficult things to keep their privacy, that's asinine. But to the person who only cares about convenience, to have any level of privacy over having full convenience, that's asinine. Well, but the truth's in between.